Well, hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Before we get too far into the video, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, that really helps to get my channel promoted, and I do appreciate that. Um, I also love it when people leave comments, so if you have some input about the video, or a question, or if you want to tell me how you do things, or some constructive criticism, all of those things are great to have in the comment section, so feel free to let me know. Normally I would be doing either 3 projects for my Thursday video or some techniques or something like that, and today I thought we'd do something different. Over the past 3 years, I don't know how many times I've been asked by people how I come up with ideas for projects, and so I thought I'd focus on some different techniques that I use to brainstorm for ideas, and hopefully you can benefit from that as well. I remember when I first started that I struggled with breaking out of the kind of sort of mundane pieces that I was making, which was fine because I was kind of building that skill set that I needed in order to be able to do more complicated things. So, but later on, after a while, you start thinking, I'd sure like to do something that's kind of different. And so one of the things that really helped me to start generating ideas more was opening a YouTube channel. So if you're forced to every or 3 times a week come up with a different unique project, it makes you search around for some different techniques to getting some good ideas. And so we'll talk about some of those. Before we get started, I wanted to thank some groups of people. My patrons over on Patreon are a great group of people. I have a new one. It's Angie N. Thank you for signing up. I really appreciate your support. I think that you'll find that it's a great group of people over there with a lot of knowledge who are very friendly. So thank you for joining that group, and thank you to my pre-existing patrons over there for making it such a nice place. So my other group is my YouTube subscribers. We just passed 18,600, which is amazing. Thank you for that. I love the comments you leave me. It's nice to know when people tell me that they're getting something useful from these, and so I really appreciate that input. I do also appreciate the Buy Me a Coffees and the Super Thanks. That really helps with the cost of materials these days. All right, well, let's start talking about some idea generation. Okay, so I thought today that I would start off by listing some of the primary sources of inspiration that I find and themes that I like to use in my jewelry. So we'll start off with some basic stuff, and then I'll talk about a few other different strategies that I use to generate more ideas. Like I said, it's become more necessary now that I'm doing so many videos all the time, and coming up with some different ideas it sometimes takes some out-of-box thinking. So hopefully I can provide you with some ideas. But some of the general categories of jewelry pieces that I like, I love making animal jewelry, and you'll find if you look through my projects that there's a whole, actually there's a playlist that's all animal jewelry if you want to check that out. I'll even put a link up here for you if you want to visit that playlist. But animals and nature all provide very cool subject matter. Sometimes I'll just sit down and I'll write a list. This is a technique we used to use, and it's just your very most basic brainstorming technique. But as an English teacher, when I was teaching how to come up with ideas for papers and things, or essays, to get the kids to start thinking, you can just give them a broad topic and say, okay, write down every cute animal you can think about, and just make a huge list, and give yourself 2 minutes to write as many as you can, and don't censor yourself. Anything that comes out of your mind is fair game. And once you do that, then start thinking about which ones would make the best pieces of jewelry. And incidentally, a good resource for looking for some to flesh out your ideas about what kind of an animal you want to do is to go to a search engine and get in the image searches and type in clip art and the type of animal you're looking for. And oftentimes you can find some really great drawings that you can convert into a jewelry format with a little creativity. So that's a great resource. One of the great benefits of the internet is you can find lots of ideas on it. So but there's there's photographs of animals and nature, sculptures sometimes to provide some great pieces to get ideas from. But there's all sorts of great animal ideas out there, and I really like to try and capture the essence of an animal. And you can do it in a couple of ways too. You can make them sort of realistic, or you can make them sort of cartoonish. And I've done both, and I kind of like doing both. So make yourself a grumpy cat pendant or something like that. Those are fun. A second inspiration for me is I'm kind of a sciencey guy, and I've always loved technology, science fiction, those sorts of things. And so I find a lot of inspiration in a scientific view of the universe. So things like chemistry can provide all sorts of cool projects. You want to make a molecule necklace, or if you wanted to, say, make if you're into astronomy, there's a million different things you could make. I had a really pretty piece of malachite that was round, and I decided to make kind of a Saturn sort of pendant that had a ring around it, and that turned out actually pretty cool. I've done aliens. Those are always fun. There's lots of fun drawings of supposed aliens. Oh, with physics, you have things like sine waves and stuff that you can incorporate into your designs. There's all sorts of fun stuff. I remember when I was a kid, just learning how to use computers, we would plot polar equations and come up with these really cool shapes based on the equation. And so those kind of things are great places to come up with shapes and ideas. Just art in general. Go to a museum that has lots of art and look at the different art. And sometimes you can find textures, shapes, motifs, all sorts of different things in paintings or sculptures that can really stimulate some good ideas. And so I love going to the Denver Museum of Art. There's lots of cool stuff there sometimes. And if you go into it with a mind set that you're looking for ideas, oftentimes you can pick out some really good ones. You could sketch things up, or you could jot down some notes about what you see. But there's great opportunities there. And there's art everywhere you look. So don't just confine it to a museum. Commercial art, advertisements, TV, anywhere you look you find bits of art, and those can be inspirational for ideas that can be converted into some sort of a jewelry piece. So look at things with an artistic eye and grab some ideas that way. One thing I sometimes fail to remember to mention is oftentimes you get a stone that just speaks to you in a way that it has to be a particular type of project. Here's one that's been speaking to me lately. I have this druzy quartz cabochon. It's like a half a circle kind of, but it's got this internal crystal pocket going through it, and so it just says to me, I really need to do a piece, and I've never done one like this, where something is set into something that goes behind this piece, so it shows up in the middle of this hole. And so in that way the stone kind of dictates to me I need to do something like that, or maybe even 2 or 3 in a row to really accent what's going on here. So that's one kind of thing. A while back I bought these, a sheet of these, they're called Bumblebee Jasper, though it's not actually jasper. But they have this sulfur in them that makes them that kind of bright yellow color, which looks like pineapple flesh to me. And so I've made a number of pineapples over the years because they just look like pineapples to me. And of course these Orthroceros fossils, if they're short and squat like this, they absolutely have to be penguins as far as I'm concerned, you know. So you can make that into a nice penguin pendant or something. So sometimes the stone gives you an idea and makes it so you want to do a particular thing. One thing you shouldn't forget is that part of learning how to make jewelry is looking at other people's jewelry to come up with ideas. And you don't necessarily have to copy things exactly, but imitation is how we learn. And I think most artists, at least this is my attitude towards people copying my jewelry, I put it out there with the deliberate idea that I want people, even the ideas that I've had that are completely unique to me, I hope people try to make things like that. I think that's fun, and that's how you grow as a metalsmith. So feel free to copy my jewelry. I know I look for aspects in other people's jewelry and sometimes incorporate them into pieces. I very rarely copy something exactly, and if I do, I try to give credit to the artist. Like I made one of those balloon dogs as a pendant one time, and I made sure to note that it was by, gosh, I don't remember his name now, but the guy who made the famous ceramic balloon dogs. And so, you know, it's okay to imitate some people and their style in order to learn yourself. You will eventually develop your own style as well, so that's a good thing to know. One of the things I noticed when I first started to make jewelry was that I started looking at jewelry a lot more critically than when I saw it in other places. So if you're out and about shopping and stuff, you look at the jewelry and you get great ideas sometimes. And sometimes, you know, the other thing that was interesting about that is you start to notice the quality control on some jewelry is relatively poor. So that's kind of a fun thing to discover, that you're making better jewelry than they're selling in stores sometimes. So, so I wanted to talk about some different things that I've done with my patrons over on Patreon in order to help them to come up with ideas. And one of the things that we do over there each month is I give them a monthly prompt, and it could be something like flowers, or one time I did furniture, or geometry, or games, or whatever. And the idea is to stimulate some ideas to come up with something unique that has to do with or is inspired by one of those topics. So each month I give them a different one, and they come up with different things. So I wanted to share some of the ones that I made based on those things. So for February, the theme was love and hope. And so I did this flower, you know, it's kind of the universal symbol of love, and most people would recognize that as a symbol of that. So one month we did nostalgia as the theme, and I thought about some things that I cared about and made some charms for a bracelet I'd made the week before. So I did a canoe and a rocket ship because I was a science fiction guy, and I went on a cool canoe trip one time when I was younger. So one time we did puzzles or toys, and I picked I did something that was inspired by something, but it wasn't totally you know, it was only inspired by it because it didn't look anything like it. But I made this bracelet where I had a twisted cage kind of that held a round amethyst bead. And I got it from one of those impossible golf ball puzzles that woodworkers make sometimes, where you there's a golf ball, looks like it couldn't possibly have gotten in there. But and so that made me think about how could I make a cage to contain something, and I did. So that was a good idea generator. One time we did fashion, and I was looking at different clasps that used to be used pretty commonly in the past. And one of them that I'd never actually heard of was called a frog fastener. And it was basically made out of cord, but into a way that you could knot it, pop a knot through a little loop on the other side, kind of like a button. And I thought I'd make a bracelet based on that idea, and I did. Of course, hobbies was another one time, and I think we had a good time with that one. I picked a hobby that wasn't mine, but was a lot of people's hobby, and it was painting, because I always thought it would be fun to make a painter's palette and use different stones for the little blots of color that are on it, and that, I think it came out kind of cool. It was fun to try and make the brush, too. One time, I think it was in 2023, in the fall, I did autumn as the theme for one of the months, and I thought I'd think of acorns and leaves falling from trees at that time of the year, and so I made an acorn pendant that has a little secret compartment in it, and that's one of my favorite pieces I've ever made, and I never would have thought of it if I hadn't had those theme kind of things. So I think this one was the Patreon prompt that was toys again, and I made a pinwheel with a stone in the center, based on the little pinwheels. Made for kind of a cool fidget ring. In the fall last year, I think, I don't remember which month it was, but we did, for the Patreon monthly theme, we did Gothic stuff. So I tried to make something that was ornate and lots of kind of detail to it with some kind of shapes that you typically see in Gothic cathedrals. And I think it turned out kind of cool. One month we did geometry or geometric shapes, and I made a triple video that had 3 different pendants. And I really like the 2 without stones in this one. The one with the stone is pretty cool, but I really like the other 2 better. One of them came out looking mid-century modern. Way back when I first started my Patreon, kitchen stuff was the theme for the month, one month, and I made an apple pie pendant, which was a fun experiment. One month, hardware, any kind of hardware around the house that you had, you could use as inspiration for jewelry. And I made a fidget ring that had a nut on top made out of silver that you could fidget with if you wanted to. It spun on a little piece of tubing. One of my very favorite ones was when we did, I think it was just food or fruit, and I found a picture of a slice of kiwi, and I tried to make something very similar to it with a little peridot in the center. And I didn't think much of it at first, but after I finished it and I got it all polished up, I was like, wow, that came out to be really cool looking. So that's one of my favorite pieces again. So you never know what you're going to find when you do some out-of-the-box thinking. One month we did sea life, and I did a jellyfish. And I really liked this. I was surprised the video didn't do better, but it has a piece of chrysoprase as the bell of the jellyfish. One month the inspiration prompt was movies. And one of my favorite movies from when I was younger was The Shining by Stephen King. I'm kind of a Stephen King fan. And the movie posters had this carpet that was, I think it was in the Stanley Hotel, which they used as the Overlook Hotel in the movie. And the pattern on it was kind of iconic because of the poster. And I made a pendant with copper and silver that kind of was reminiscent of the shapes in that pattern. Way back near the beginning, we did a theme that was lamps or lights, and I've always liked mid-century modern stuff, and we found this really cool light that had some kind of box-like shapes that were sort of oval, and I made it into a pendant with 4 green stones. Taking an art movement sometimes and trying to duplicate the work from that period is a good way to expand your abilities and your knowledge of different art periods too. I've discovered a whole bunch of different art periods that I didn't realize that I liked until I started doing this a little bit. And I've always sort of liked Cubism a little bit, and I thought it would be fun to try to do a Cubist sort of pendant, and I did something similar. It was fun to just try to reproduce a kind of a Cubist-looking face as a pendant. One month I did science fiction, and I think in my patrons, I'm one of the few science fiction fans because I didn't get as much response from this one as I did on some of the other ones. But my wife was a huge Trekkie, and so I made her a Star Trek comm badge that was a pendant with a blue topaz in the middle, and I kind of liked it. It came out pretty nice. So, if you really want to force yourself to be creative, say, okay, I want to make something that's related to surfing, for instance, and then try to think of what you could do that would be a fun piece of jewelry that had to do with surfing. You know, there's all sorts of different ideas out there. One of the things I've been doing for my patrons as well is about once a month I give them idea generation video where my wife and I go do something to come up with ideas for jewelry, and then I try and make something from one. And some of the different things that we've done in the past are going to a local sculpture park where we took a lot of pictures of sculptures, and I tried to come up with some different ideas from those, and that was fun. So sometimes going to a particular type of store, we went to we went to a retail store that had a lot of closeouts in it, and I found this, I don't even know what it was, some kind of a tray or something. And I used that as inspiration for this flower pendant, which has a little secret compartment in it. And I thought that came out cool, and it was just based on something I saw in a retail store. So using games as an inspiration, or just miscellaneous things from your childhood. In this case, I used a spirograph to come up with some ideas. And the thing that I found from the spirograph was the cool pattern in one of the results from using it. Made some cool wings for my bee pendant that I made, which it's probably one of my favorite insect pieces I've ever made. So another game one was we were playing some cards, and I thought, what iconic card would be a fun one to make a piece over? And I picked the Ace of Spades because that one seems to be a popular card. If you notice, I made a mistake on this one, and the A on the bottom should be upside down if it was a real card. So. Oops. Going to a knick-knack store or a flea market is a great way to look for ideas. It's hard to find such a collection of miscellaneous stuff, more so than a flea market or a what do they call them? Opportunity shop, I think, in some foreign countries. But this one, I saw this kind of Art Deco-y looking vase made out of crystal or glass or something, and I thought, wow, that's a really cool shape. And so I used it to make this, I don't remember, I think it's chrysocolla maybe, if I remember right, or turquoise, I'm not sure which, pendant, which sold almost immediately, so it must have been a good idea. So if you're looking for a way to find some ideas, pick a destination and go there with something in mind, with the idea in mind. You're looking for ideas for a piece of jewelry, and try to either take pictures or write down whatever you think of that pops into your head. Sometimes you can come up with some really great ideas. Or another trick you can do is you can give yourself like a theme and try and do multiple pieces within that theme. I do that sometimes. In fact, that hardware one I mentioned earlier was a 3-piece video where I tried to do 3 different pieces based on hardware. One was the nut ring, another was some earrings that had washer-like pieces on them. The final one was a door plate, an old-fashioned looking door plate, and there's a name for those, and I can't remember what it is. Another themed one could be some of those animal ones. Like I have oftentimes done, like on these ones, I got 3 different cat pieces that all look distinctly different or are different types of jewelry, and 3 different fox pieces. Or how about jewelry pieces that have holes as their primary decoration? Or horses, anything related to horses, that's a good idea. Or how about different types of birds? Or different types of leaves? We've thought about going to a nursery and sketching leaves before, you know, different kinds of plants' leaves, because there's so many different kinds of leaves that you could make. Final thing that I look for, when I'm out and about, I constantly anymore kind of keep my eyes out for interesting shapes, whether it's in architecture or something else, like just designs on buildings or things in parks, or shapes of mountains, or whatever, shapes of clouds. Sometimes you find some really good ideas looking at that kind of stuff. But one thing I see a lot of are some really cool textures, and some of my favorite rings I made that I'd never really thought of doing before were these brick rings, where I did kind of a texture on some flattened square wire and made bricks out of it and soldered them to the outside of a thick piece of sheet. And it looks very much reminiscent of a brick wall, and so I was always pleased with that one. Other textures you see, I see a lot of ironwork fencing that has some interesting shapes and patterns to it, lots of scroll work and things like that that you can incorporate. Designs on branding sometimes have some pretty shapes and ornate swirls and things that you can incorporate. So keep an open mind when you're out and about, and you'll find all sorts of ideas. So make sure to leave a comment and tell me how you come up with ideas. I'd love to hear your idea generation strategies. I'm always looking for new ways to come up with ideas, especially with the schedule I've given myself. All right. Well, I hope you found that useful. Okay, well, I hope that video helped you to come up with some ideas to brainstorm for different project designs. There's no real wrong way to do it, but I think you can incorporate everyday stuff all the time into your jewelry making and make some really unique pieces. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit the like button before you leave. And I'd love it if you'd go over to my main channel page. There's 450 plus videos there now. At 3 per week, it builds up pretty fast. And so there's certainly tons of content to peruse, and I think you'll find at least one other thing that you like. So check those out. Make sure to subscribe to my channel, and I'd love it if you'd look at the video description down below. There's some important links down there. There's a link to buy my latest ebook, which is a guide to last year's video tutorials, of which there were over 170. It includes things like a picture of the sketch that I drew, a picture of the final product, a list of materials that you need, difficulty rating, some notes I made about the piece, and also a link right to the video. So get yourself one of those. It's a great resource to have a whole bunch of projects right at your fingertips, and a great way to support my channel. The other link, actually there's two other links. One is from my merch store if you want to get yourself one of those design idea books I talked about. Those are super handy for drawing up designs. And also there's a link to my Patreon if you want to find out more about that community. It's a great place and lots of nice people over there, and just kind of a cool artistic community. So, all right, well, thanks for coming by. Take care. Happy silversmithing.